Let's greet Michele Finelli. He will give a talk about healing shell-shocked infrastructure. The talk should be in Italian, but will be given in English if it's fine for everyone.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank to the organizer for accepting my talk. My name is Michele Finelli. I have a company named Biodec, and I will give you a talk about what happened in September, okay, about a thing called shell shock. Does this name ring anything to anybody? Are you okay? I've been informed. Okay. So, where were you the night between the 23rd and the 24th of September? Because in that day, a software vulnerability was announced. I read it on OSS Security, but it was announced on many mailing lists. It was a vulnerability about a program called Bash. I think you know what Bash is. It is basically the most used shell in the world. The funny fact about this vulnerability is that it was network exploitable. That's funny because Bash is something that runs on a host. It's the thing that runs when you log in on a server. But if it happened that you had let's say a CGI bin that ran with Bash as an interpreter and generated HTML through Bash scripting. Nowadays, nobody does that anymore. But in year 2000, it could be that you had script and programs done like that. Then your HTTP server was network exploitable. And this vulnerability existed since 1989. It was discovered 15 years after it got into the code base of Bash. Okay? So it seems fun that you have a bug 25 years old that is in Bash and can be network exploitable, but no, I'm not joking, and it is not fun when you get that kind of news and you have been doing, and you have other business to do, okay? So, patch time. Any internet-facing system that we had, that we managed, had to be upgraded, and we had to do that fast. This quote is from Wikipedia, and it is quite accurate. Within an hour, there were announcements of system compromised because of this bug. And the day after, there were already botnets running over the internet and looking for a vulnerable system. So if it happened that you had a server that was at risk, you had to act, and you had to act really fast. By the way, I give again my thanks to distribution maintainers. We maintain mainly Debian and Ubuntu boxes, but the maintainers did an awesome job of upgrading timely a lot of software and making it available to the community. So, to recap, we have 100 of us that we have to fix. We have to fix them, well, now, basically, after a few hours that you read the email about the vulnerability. And by the way, it's better that you do not make mistake. You know, mistake happens, but it's an issue if you make a mistake, I don't know, upgrading Vim. Who cares if for some reason you are not able to run Vim anymore for few hours? Okay, you care a lot, but if you botch the upgrade of Bash, well, it could be that you are not allowed to log in anymore. Perhaps the system could not even reboot anymore, okay? And just one more thing, as Peter Falk playing Columbo used to say, I had a severe backache, so I was lying in my bed. That has nothing to do with shell shock, but it was really painful. So it is just, you don't want to read that email anytime, but when you are ill, you don't want to read it with more strength. So get to what helped us into getting out of this trouble. Fabric. Who knows who use Fabric in this audience? Okay, a lot of people, so okay. I will just give a very high-level overview of the system and how we use to solve this problem. Fabric is a Python library, and it is a command line tool. Basically, it helps you to do administrative tasks through SSH. This is a website of the project, and just to give a very rough idea of the system, think to Fabric as a kind of parallel shell, but better. Okay, parallel shell is a program that allows you to give command in parallel to many hosts. You give to the parallel shell a list of hosts, and then you command all of them, sending the same command to all of the system. You do basically the same thing with Fabric, but you do that writing Python code and leveraging the powerful capabilities of the Fabric library. What Fabric is not? It is not a replacement for Salt, Puppet, CF Engine 3. It is not a replacement for all the systems that have a client-server architecture. It is not something that continuously runs and that guarantees that, I don't know, certain software is running, certain package is up to date, and stuff like that. If you want that kind of behavior, my opinion, you should not use Fabric. You could use Fabric, basically running it through cron or another way, but it's not. It's business. It is more in the category, to me, of what Chef is for Ruby developers. Okay. Moreover, Fabric is not a DSL to do system configuration and configuration management or provisioning. You have to write Python code, which in this case is a nice to have. Last but not least, it's not a parallel shell in the sense that you get interactively what you, the output of what you write. You get a report on what happened on the server, and you get the standard out of the result of your command. Okay. Given this consideration, I think that Fabric is a really nice tool, and in fact in Biotech we use it to run simple things, in a sense. When you have to run on many hosts, either one-shot tasks or throwaway scripts, things that you happen to need today, but because you have just one use case to satisfy, and it is quite unlikely that you have to rerun the software as it is next time, Fabric is usually a good choice because it's very easy, you get very fast to write the code that you need. Obviously, you test and commit it, whatever, but we do not use it for a more elaborate or repeatable task. For example, if we need to set up a virtual machine from scratch, let's say from a basic Debian setup, okay, with almost nothing installed except SSHD, and we want to have that server configured with postfix because it happens to be a mail server, we don't do that with Fabric. We used to do that with Fabric, but we decided that it's much better to use tools like Ansible or Celt. At the end, we decided for Ansible. So what we usually do with Fabric is answering to questions like that. I have a problem, I need to determine a value of a certain configuration because I need to verify that they are consistent among a list of servers. So how do I get a value of a certain parameter in a configuration file? This very simple code fragment shows basically what you need to know to get the main idea of what Fabric is and how does it work. The first part is a code fragment. It lives in a file called mish.py, and it defines a report postfix relay host function which you come from system administration. We have just to think as a command, as a task that you run on a remote server, and it does something very, very easy. It just grep for the relay host string on the result of postconf. Postconf is a command to get the configuration of a postfix server. You execute that function with this syntax. Fab is one of the way of using Fabric because you can either use it as a library or through what they call as fab files, which basically are Python files written in a certain way. Thank you. And you call the task, basically calling the function on the module mish. What you get, okay, here he asked me concretely to write the host because I didn't provide a file for this test, and that's what happened. This command was run on the remote server. That's what I got on standard output, and in particular, this is the result that I wanted to know. This server has a relay host, and it's the name of the relay host, so you can run it on many other systems and control if the configuration is consistent or not. So, its strength is that you are free to use Fabric as you like. Either use some of its function as a library or through Fab, as I showed before. It has a lot of built-ins. I just showed you run in the previous example, but it has sudo to run a command as another user, put and get to put and retrieve file on the remote system, cd, a lot of commands to interact with file, to comment or uncomment things, change parameters, and so on. And the fab command also has many options to skip unreachable host, to ignore GNOME host warning, just in case they change the SSH keys, all of things that can happen when you run on a large infrastructure. That's what I did. That's a very simple function. It's 20 lines long, and basically it used the run command, except for put, because we had some corner cases where if we had H or Lenny, which are the code name, which I get from running LSB release, as you see in the first line, and the system is not 64-bit, so they are really old machine, but okay, if they are vulnerable, it's necessary to upgrade them. I could not rely on a simple get update because the package was not in the repository anymore. They were not out of maintenance. So, thanks to Marco Ditri, he compiled bash for those old platforms, and you basically put the file on the remote system, install it by hand with the package, and then you do this because you have to be sure that if you give an update, the bash that you install will not be upgraded by the default that's in the repository. Otherwise, you just do this. Funny things that happen when you have to upgrade a large infrastructure and you discover things that give you errors and should not is, for example, this funny parameter, because through the heavy load on the Debian CDN, some of the system that had the Debian packages were on AWS. And there is a problem that sometimes happens when you try to retrieve the data on the CDN that's hosted by Amazon, and it's amount to the fact that pipelining does not always work. You get packages out of order, and that's a mess, obviously, because packages get scrambled and you get the wrong name on the package, so you have to tell to apt-get do not use pipelining. That's one funny thing that you want to look on the web at 1 o'clock in the morning when you have to upgrade the system, but you then put your knowledge in this system and you don't need to document it for other people after you. So we got the advisory, we read it, good. We upgraded the fab file, very good. We even tested on some spare host. Okay. Now, how do we get the list of those that need to be updated? At the time, we managed around 350 servers around the world. Now they are fewer, and we manage this infrastructure with a ratio of 1 person for 20 servers. That's pretty good. We use a mix of free software tool like CheckMK, which you then is seeing our Nagios for alerting, with a thing called live status. You have to think to it about like an agent. Thank you. That gives you facts on your system under monitoring, like the CPU load, the occupation on disk, if a software is running or not. And then we have some customization to put factor, which is a Ruby library, which gives you facts about the machine into CouchDB. And so this acts as a sort of federated, distributed CMDB. We have some tools, and without getting into the detail of the tool, but I can give you information after this talk if you are interested, but it's very specific to how we build our monitoring infrastructure. If we ask to the Biodec server which hosts are running the SSH system, it returns a list of hosts from Alberto Dev to Yanis Yuta Zapata. If you run the command on all the server, it takes time, because now it takes from 1 to 2 minutes. The infrastructure is distributed on the web. We have to reach some server which are behind the VPN, so things can get slow at the time, and you get 158 hits. So basically, happy hand. You have the list of hosts, you have the command, you have tested it. Distribution maintainers provided packages. Other people provided packages for hosts that were not under maintenance anymore. And we contained the shell shock. Shell shock is the term that you get on Wikipedia about this kind of vulnerability. Okay? And we are very happy of what happened, because we had no security problem. No system was had any issue because of this bug. We had few rough spots because that process had to be repeated at least, I think, 3 times in the next few days, because at the end there were 6 CVE. CVE is computer vulnerability. I don't remember what the E stands for, but basically it means that there were 6 different vulnerability about Bash, and every time they had to write a patch and release a new Bash version. Some of the data has to be curated manually, because we had, for example, QNAP or OpenVRT system like Wi-Fi hotspot, which have SSH but don't have either Debian or Red Hat or whenever, and in fact that do not have even a vulnerable bash. So we even had a few Microsoft boxes with SSD running from Chigwin. So at the end of the time, we have even some corner issue like a Debian Sarge box installed 3,000 years ago, and it's a fine issue. How do you test an upgrade on an infrastructure where you have one-of-a-kind system? It's not so easy. In fact, at the end, we are very happy of what happened, but it was quite demanding, and we learned a lot about how to manage the infrastructure. And if we had to get away from this talk with just a couple of ideas, my suggestion is if you don't do that, start using tools like, for example, Fabric. If you are more comfortable with ADSL, start with Ansible or Salt, or well, even Puppet, whenever, and start to manage your infrastructure as a whole. Start to use or to build your own tool to manage the infrastructure and to know the system that you have to manage. And well, good luck, but I think that our experience shows that with the right tools and the right things in place, even if something really difficult happens while you are, for example, lying in the bed because your back ache, you can get a good result and basically doing your job. So thank you for your attention. I think that we have 5 minutes for question, and these are my data, or if you want to talk about Biodec, we are looking for programmer, system administration, and we can continue talking about that after a while. So if we have, thank you.
Any questions?
Thanks. Can I make my question in Italian language?
As you like.
Ok. Quando è uscita questa, diciamo così, vulnerabilità, si sente? Ok. Tanta gente, tanti sistemisti sono subito corsi a fare apt-get, degli aggiornamenti, dei patch dal server ufficiale di Linux e tutte le varie distribuzioni. Però secondo me nessuno si è chiesto che sarebbe successo se invece la stessa patch fosse stata precedentemente corrotta. Nel senso, chi me lo dice a me che quella vulnerabilità appena scoperta non è stata già usata per compromettere una patch?
Questo è su Bash, non su Apache. Comunque, ok, il discorso.
No, la patch, non la patch, la patch.
Scusa, ho capito Apache, scusa.
Tutti, la patch è uscita, scarichiamola e installiamola. Nessuno ha pensato, ma se qualcuno l'ha già scoperto, diciamo, da 2 giorni, ha già compromesso il server dell'apt-get, ha già compromesso il server, tutti i repository, tutto quanto, già è compromesso, e io installo altri problemi sostanzialmente. Nessuno, cioè in pochi in realtà, si sono preoccupati di farsi da soli una soluzione.
Tipo?
Tipo riscrive quella parte del bash che dava il problema. Perché in realtà pochi hanno le competenze per farlo, ma tutti preferiscono prendere la patch ufficiale.
Sarò sincero, mi sembra un'idea molto peregrina. Tanto per iniziare, il problema è lì dal 1989. Se qualcuno l'ha sfruttato per bucarti la macchina, è compromesso. Tu puoi ricompilare il mondo, ma a questo punto sei spiccio. O ti fidi di un distribution maintainer, e ti puoi fidare di Debian, di Ubuntu, di Red Hat, di un po' chi ti pare, di Slackware, e ti fidi del fatto che il codice è a disposizione, quindi nell'ultima analisi puoi fare come è stato fatto per le macchine più vecchie, te lo pigli, te lo ricompili, ti fai i tuoi deb a mano, o non ti fidi. Se ti fidi, quando sul repository ufficiale esce una patch firmata, la applichi. Se non ti fidi, non so che strategia devi intraprendere, ma essenzialmente devi rifarti tutto a mano e mi sembra un po' eccessivo, insomma.
Io no, volevo soltanto aggiungere qualcosa a quello che hai detto tu, più che fare una domanda. esiste un processo che è standard per poter fare il report delle vulnerabilità in tutto il mondo di Linux. È un processo che si segue ed è per questo che esistono le mailing list di sicurezza per tutti i progetti, sia del Linux kernel che quelli di Bash, che quelli delle varie distribuzioni. E ogni volta che viene riportata una cosa del genere, prima si comunica l'errore a tutte le distribuzioni e dopo si fa subito pubblico, perché prima le persone sanno che c'è un errore, che c'è una vulnerabilità, prima riusciranno a sistemare l'errore. Non è che c'è uno che appare un giorno e dice «Oh, io mi sono scritto la patch stamattina, applicatela». È una patch che va su un processo che procede attraverso una serie di review da tante altre persone e che una volta che viene firmata è perché è stata approvata ed è stato verificato che in effetti funziona. Perciò se te la prendi dai sorgenti ufficiali o dalle fonti ufficiali è perché la patch è stata revisionata. Perciò adesso bisogna fidarsi della fonte, non è che io me la scarico da un torrent la patch, cioè vado dal sito che ha ufficialmente supporto per Bash e per le altre distribuzioni, insomma. E così come funziona un processo standard, si applica a tutti i progetti open source, non soltanto a Bash o a Linux, si applica a OpenStack, OpenShift, a qualsiasi progetto, Ruby, Python, tutti i progetti open hanno.
Abbiamo un minuto.
Se io ho compromesso già la macchina, io sono in grado di prendere il pacchetto patch che tu hai messo, distruggerlo, mettere il mio compromesso e rifà una firma che per tutti è valida, perché io ho accesso completo alla tua macchina. Se io accedo alla macchina che distribuisce le patch, tu non te ne accorgi che io l'ho compromessa, perché posso firmarla come se fossi te.
Sì, è corretto, ma il punto è che tu stai ipotizzando di avere come nemico il Mossad e va bene, sei morto, cioè non ti difendi con questi strumenti. Su base dal fatto che hai un opponente che ha questa capacità, buona, sei spiccio, però non credo sia così, perlomeno è improbabile che tutto il mondo ce l'abbia. Cioè devo andare in fondo di cosa. Cioè anch'io sono abbastanza paranoico, ma mi sembra che il tuo livello sia un po' fuori. Lo so, però. Vai.
Ti chiedo una cosa, perché anch'io uso pesantemente Fabric. Stavo guardando in questi momenti Ansible.
Sì.
Ti volevo chiedere, hai visto se secondo te, cioè quali sono le differenze uno con l'altro, e un po' anche perché magari voi non usate Ansible o invece usate Fabric o altre cose così.
Allora, per fare molte cose, come si sente, no? Si parla da qua, sì.
Sì.
Tipo l'esempio di prima, cioè devo installare un server postfix, lo faccio con Ansible perché, non so se vedi, io ho questa catena di Sant'Antonio, no? Sì. Ok. Qua, tutta questa roba qua, questa è una complessità che non ti schivi, perché anche con Ansible il fatto che in Etch e in Lenny non hai package e se ci sono solo per le macchine a 32 bit, quindi devi mettere quel filettino lì che ti sei scaricato da qualche parte, lo devi essenzialmente hardcodare a mano, perché poveretto lui non è in grado di sapere che una macchina che è su archive non ha più nessun pacchetto, tu gliene vuoi dare uno in un certo modo. Se però vuoi fare una cosa più standard, tipo appunto installare postfix, con Ansible tu gli dici essenzialmente installa postfix, è lui che poi sa che su Debian o Ubuntu è un comando e sotto Red e Yum è un altro comando ancora. Quindi con Fabric che cos'hai? Che ti trovi spesso a scrivere un sacco di questo codice qua, no? Che va a vedere come è fatta la macchina, come è fatta la distribuzione, come è fatto il kernel, e se lo stai facendo per una cosa standard, abbiamo deciso, stai perdendo tempo, usa un sistema che fa già tutte queste considerazioni con te. Se è una complessità che in questo caso è ineludibile, perché per ogni caso specifico qua gli devi andare a dire a manina come volevi fare l'aggiornamento, con Fabric è molto meglio perché sei più vicino a una dichiarazione, cioè questo qua strippi via put e run e togli gli if e si legge come uno script shell, quindi alla fine anche concettualmente per chi deve lavorare, chi viene magari dal mondo dello scripting e Bash lo conosce, fare una cosa così gli viene molto facile, però lo fai dentro a un framework che ti aiuta. Quindi il discriminante è proprio quello, cioè se i corner case che vai a vedere ce li hai perché è così il problema e allora questo è più comodo, negli altri casi usa un Ansible o un sistema che tu gli dici monta l'ultimo Apache, buona, sa lui a seconda delle distribuzioni cosa deve fare, oppure ensure running postfix, arrangiati, sai tu qual è il comando che fa il restart nei vari dialetti.
Ok, grazie Michele.
Grazie a voi. Grazie.